They said I was nothing more than a gold digger. He swore he'd destroy everything I ever loved. Little did he know, the girl he once cherished would become the architect of his downfall. This is how I survived the revenge of a billionaire scorned. If you love stories of survival, justice, and unexpected twists, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Life has a way of throwing you curveballs when you least expect them. I was never supposed to be anything more than another face in the crowd, just another struggling 20-something juggling 3 jobs to make ends meet. By day, I was a barista, with dreams bigger than my bank account. By night, a freelance graphic designer, working from a tiny studio apartment that barely qualified as livable. The charity gala wasn't even on my radar. I was there as a last-minute graphic design contractor, setting up displays and arranging promotional materials. My hands were calloused from work, my blazer slightly wrinkled, a stark contrast to the pristine world of the city's elite. That's when I first saw him, Alexander Reyes, the billionaire tech mogul whose face graced magazine covers and whose name was synonymous with innovation and wealth. Our first encounter was nothing short of a Hollywood script. He noticed me when I was adjusting a display, completely unaware of the piercing gaze that had locked on to me. I was more concerned with ensuring every logo was perfectly aligned than impressing anyone. But something about my focused determination caught his attention. One moment of eye contact, and the entire room seemed to fade away. The whirlwind that followed was intoxicating. Alexander wasn't just wealthy, he was magnetic. He saw potential in me that I had long stopped believing existed. Suddenly, my world transformed. Late-night design sessions became intimate dinners at restaurants where the bill could cover my entire month's rent. He didn't just open doors, he demolished walls I thought were insurmountable. Our relationship defied every societal expectation. I was the girl from the wrong side of town. He was the heir to a technological empire. The power dynamics were clear, yet he made me feel like an equal. Every luxury he introduced me to was balanced with a genuine respect for my ambitions. He believed in my designs, invested in my small freelance business, and made me believe that my dreams were within reach. But fairy tales have a way of shattering. The betrayal came like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. A simple misunderstanding, a text message misinterpreted, a business contact misconstrued, became the catalyst for my complete destruction. One moment I was his partner, his confidant. The next, I was public enemy number one. His revenge was calculated and brutal. With a few strategic phone calls, he dismantled everything we had built together. My design contracts disappeared, my professional reputation was shredded, and the social circles we once navigated together became a minefield of whispers and judgment. Friends I thought were ride or die vanished faster than morning mist, leaving me completely alone. Rock bottom wasn't a place, it was a feeling of absolute emptiness. I lost my apartment, my job, my sense of self-worth. The confident woman who had caught a billionaire's eye was reduced to someone unrecognizable, broken, defeated, questioning every decision that had led me to this moment. Little did he know, this wasn't the end of my story. This was just the beginning. Survival isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain, or in my case, learning to turn that rain into a strategic weapon. The months following my public downfall weren't about healing, they were about transformation. I disappeared, not in the way people expected, with my tail between my legs, but methodically, purposefully. My tiny basement apartment became my war room, walls covered with printed articles, financial reports, and intricate connections that most people would see as meaningless scribbles. But to me, they were a roadmap to redemption. Every rejection, every closed door became a lesson. I taught myself forensic accounting through online courses, devoured business journals, and connected with people Alexander would never expect me to know. The bartender from his favorite club, the assistant he'd carelessly dismissed years ago, the junior accountant who felt overlooked, They became my eyes and ears. My graphic design skills transformed into something more potent. I learned to craft narratives, to understand how information flows, how reputations are built and destroyed. Each connection was a chess piece, each piece deliberately placed with a purpose Alexander couldn't see coming. The old me would have been broken by his systematic destruction. The new me saw it as an invitation, a challenge to rebuild not just myself, but to expose the carefully constructed facade of a man everyone believed was untouchable. I worked 3 jobs again, but this time with a laser-focused purpose. Every dollar saved was a dollar invested in my strategy. Late nights weren't spent crying, but plotting. My computer became my weapon, information my ammunition. I studied his business empire like a doctoral thesis, understanding every weakness, every potential point of vulnerability. The world thought I was down. Alexander believed he had crushed me completely. But what he didn't understand was the difference between being knocked down and being defeated. I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to thrive. And when I was done, he would understand the true meaning of karma. My revenge wouldn't be loud, it would be surgical, precise, devastating. This was no longer about getting even. This was about justice. The first strike is always the most delicate. Like a surgeon's first incision, precision matters more than force. I had spent months understanding Alexander's empire, not just his business, but the intricate web of relationships, vulnerabilities, and secrets that held it together. My initial move was almost invisible. A carefully crafted email to a key investor, hints dropped in the right ears, strategic information leaks that seemed innocuous but would later prove devastating. I wasn't just attacking his business, I was dismantling his reputation piece by piece, watching the foundations of his carefully constructed world begin to crack. The real beauty of revenge is patience. While Alexander continued to believe he had completely destroyed me, I was rebuilding myself as something he could never anticipate, a ghost that would haunt every aspect of his life. Each connection I'd made became a potential weapon. The dismissed assistant who remembered every confidential conversation. The junior accountant who had access to financial records. The bartender who knew every late-night secret. My first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. A series of ethical violations in one of his subsidiary companies, violations I had meticulously documented, began to surface. Anonymous tips, carefully planted evidence, strategic conversations with investigative journalists. I was writing a narrative that would unravel everything he had built. The confrontations weren't dramatic Hollywood-style showdowns. They were calculated, surgical strikes that left him questioning everything. His business partners started asking uncomfortable questions. Investors became nervous. The empire he had built so carefully began to show fracture lines. But this wasn't just about business destruction. This was about exposing the true nature of a man who believed he was untouchable. I gathered stories, not just from me, but from others he had wronged. The employees he had casually discarded. The business partners he had betrayed. Each story became a weapon. Each revelation, a strategic blow. The most powerful moment came when I realized this wasn't just about personal revenge. It was about justice, the systematic way he had destroyed lives, the casual cruelty with which he operated. I was giving voice to those who had been silenced. His world didn't collapse overnight. It crumbled slowly, methodically, like a building with its foundation carefully undermined. Each day brought a new revelation, a new challenge to his carefully constructed image. The man who once seemed invincible was now constantly on the defensive. I watched from a distance, not with hatred, but with a cold, calculated precision. This wasn't about making him suffer. This was about making him understand the consequences of his actions, about showing that power is not about wealth or status, but about integrity and humanity. The confrontation was never going to be a single moment. It was going to be a systematic deconstruction of everything he believed defined him. And I was just getting started. The final confrontation wasn't a dramatic courtroom scene or a heated argument. It was a quiet moment of absolute clarity, the kind of moment that changes everything. I chose the same charity gala where we first met. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same room where Alexander had once lifted me from obscurity would now become the stage of his ultimate downfall. I arrived knowing exactly what I was going to do, dressed not to impress, but to make a statement. My evidence was ironclad. Years of careful collection, strategic planning, and patient investigation had culminated in this moment. The reports, the testimonies, the financial records, each piece a carefully crafted puzzle that would expose every single unethical practice he had hidden beneath his polished exterior. As he stood on the stage, still believing in his own invincibility, I watched, the room full of his peers, his investors, the very people he had manipulated for years. They were about to see the real Alexander Reyes. The first domino fell with a simple USB drive, handed to a particularly persistent investigative journalist, then another to a regulatory board member, then another to a key investor. Each carefully timed, each strategically placed. The information was released not as an attack, but as a meticulously documented exposé of years of corruption. His empire didn't just crumble, it imploded. Businesses he had built over decades began to collapse like a house of cards. Investors pulled out. Partnerships dissolved. The network he had so carefully constructed began to unravel, thread by thread. But this wasn't about destruction. This was about accountability. The most powerful moment wasn't watching his businesses fall. It was seeing the moment he realized the true extent of his vulnerability. The man who once thought he could destroy lives with a single phone call was now powerless, stripped of his armor of wealth and influence. I didn't feel triumph. I felt something deeper, a sense of justice that transcended personal revenge. This was about giving voice to those he had silenced, about showing that no amount of money could protect someone from the consequences of their actions. His fall was spectacular, but not because of me. It was because of every person he had stepped on, every life he had carelessly destroyed, every ethical line he had crossed. I was simply the catalyst, the one who brought the truth to light. In the end, I realized revenge wasn't about making someone suffer. It was about healing, not just for myself, but for everyone who had been hurt by his actions. The girl he had tried to destroy had become something he could never have imagined, a force of reckoning. As I walked out of that gala, I wasn't the same woman who had once been broken. I was someone entirely new, stronger, wiser, and absolutely unbreakable. Some stories don't end with happily ever after. Some stories end with justice. This is more than just a story of revenge. It's a testament to survival, strategy, and never letting anyone define your worth. If you were inspired, share this story. Someone out there needs to hear it.